right, here we go. This is day 11 of the 31-day individuation process for the month of October. Today's question is very simple but profound at the same time. It is, do I find it challenging to accept and be my authentic self? If so, why? And the reason why this question is so important is because, as I've mentioned before, we're kind of like conditioned out of our own authenticity early on in childhood. Again, as we learn in the household growing up that we can't be this way or that way, whenever we present ourselves this way, we're either shunned for it or we're shamed for it, or, healthy anger in the household is not acceptable because this person can't handle it, but you were too young to understand that, so you're going to just learn growing up that there's something wrong with you and that you can't express healthy anger, right? So, not that somebody is going to be generally angry all the time. I would not argue that that's healthy, or that that's authentic. But what I would argue is that a lot of people have been taught that they can't be their own selves authentically because people don't like it, right? And of course, this is what births things like codependency and people pleasing and all that stuff, and it's a fucking shit show, in all honesty. But what we're trying to get at here is the fact that so many people are conditioned outside of their own authenticity. And because they're conditioned outside of it, there is that heavy influence from people of, oh, you can't be that way, you can't be this, that, and the other way. People have basically been scared out of being themselves, right? And the reason why that's a fucking tragedy is because authenticity is absolutely key, right? I have known how to be inauthentic. And when I say inauthentic, by the way, people pleasing is inauthentic. It's inauthentic because you are living from a belief. A belief, it's not a fact, it is a belief that there's something wrong with you, and therefore you need to do things outside of your own frame of authenticity to get people to like you because you were taught a belief growing up that there was something wrong with you. So therefore, you can't be okay unless other people are okay. And you can't be okay with yourself unless other people are okay with you. That's basically codependency, right? And so a lot of people, they grow up believing that they're not worth their own, self-validation. They're not worth actually like giving themselves that check mark of, you're good, you got it. And they really feel like they can't. They feel like unless other people do, they can't. And they're not going to unless other people do. So they live a life of consistently externalizing their self-worth, right? But yeah, the question is, do I find it challenging to accept my authentic self? Or, yeah, to be and to accept my authentic self? And if so, why? I think that the why, the second part of this question, is going to bring a lot of people to start thinking about their childhoods. Like, oh, my parents wouldn't let me be this, that, and the other way growing up, and because of that, it really conditioned me out of being who I am most authentically, right? Maybe I liked to dress this way, and they were like, no, you're not wearing that. Because they have their own ideas for how things are supposed to be, how people are supposed to be, how people are supposed to dress, right? Now, let me make this very clear because it's important to understand this. That is shit, right? So, like, when I say that is shit, people are walking projectors. They have their own shit, right? And shit is, this is how things are supposed to be. This is how people are supposed to be. This is what people are supposed to wear. Supposed to. Oh, I was taught growing up that the world would look like this, that, and the other. Oh, I was taught growing up that people would look like this, that, and the other. And what's going on here? It's not adding up. That's all. You have your own perception based on what you were conditioned with in terms of what you learned, in terms of what your parents taught you or other people taught you, other potential authority figures in your life. And that basically distorted your perception in regards to how things are and how things are supposed to be. And what's really interesting about this too is something that I've actually grown to really appreciate is neutrality. The ability to be neutral, right? So not to push anyone in this direction or that direction, but to bring back to the self, right? What does the self want? And the reason why that's so important is because it will always bring you back to authenticity. Let me just make this very clear. There's nothing wrong with you. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you've been through, it doesn't matter where you've come from, doesn't matter what you've been taught about you is wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. There have been things taught to you, by the way, not fact, belief systems taught to you that have led you to believe that you are unworthy or that you lack something, right? Maybe your parents didn't like the way that you wanted to dress growing up. Okay, no big deal. Doesn't mean that you lack something or that you are not worthy of great things in life, great people. It's all belief systems. And by the way, what you were taught about yourself had never had anything to do with you. And it had everything to do with, and also it quite possibly never had anything to do with the people that were teaching it to you, right? Again, this is projections. The level of, or the material of the fucked upness that has occupied a person's consciousness, right? A person's consciousness, a person's unconsciousness is originated in the person that fucked them up, right? So you look at, for instance, let's say this person is a parent and this person is a child. This person was taught by their parent. This parent that is the parent to this child was taught by this person's parent that they were not good enough for no reason at all. There's a the likelihood of this person instilling this child, or I should say this parent instilling this child with the same beliefs, unless this person decides to realize that it was their parent that fucked them up with those bullshit beliefs, it's likely that this person is going to project, or I should say this parent is going to project their bullshit beliefs onto this child. You see what I'm saying here? So we are essentially like screwed out of our own authenticity because it like say for instance, if this shit was to happen now at this point in our lives with this level of awareness that when you're an adult, when you can see things differently than you did when you couldn't even as a child, right? Because you just didn't know what the fuck was going on. Your overall sense of awareness was not fully formed, right? You're robbed of the self. You are robbed of yourself when you are at that point in your life, because you're relying on your God or both your gods to give you a sense of guidance into a good direction, right? And a lot of gods just end up projecting their own trauma, their own low self-esteem, their own guilt, their own shame, with bullshit ideas and opinions about people, life, the world, all that stuff onto their children, and then that fucks them up, right? And then throughout the entire life, throughout all their years of experience, they learn that, a belief, by the way, they learn a belief that they can't be, that they can't be and they can't accept themselves for who they are authentically. And that's how this all unfolds, right? There is nothing wrong with you. It needs to be understood. Things happened in your life that molded you into the way that you are, but there's nothing wrong with you. And so therefore, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to accept yourself and be and express yourself authentically, right? But if you do find it challenging to be and accept yourself as you are authentically, I would explore why. And again, you'll probably come to ideas of what you experienced growing up. Oh, my parents wouldn't let me be this way. If I tried to be this way, they would teach me to neglect that or negate that or to suppress that. But again, really important to understand, when we suppress feelings, right? Like if we're presenting healthy anger, and we're taught to repress that or suppress that, we're also suppressing our immune system. So, as you suppress your emotions, you're also suppressing your health. Pretty fucking crazy. But ask yourself, do I find it challenging to accept myself and be myself authentically? And if so, Why?